2025 has been a pretty good year for movies so far. In these past 6 months, or 6 months and a half, I'm being completely honest, I've seen a lot of good movies. So much, in fact, that, being any film lover would do, everyone knows movie nerds love making their top 10 or top 20 list. I made a list. In fact, I made a top 25 list. And, since you guys are here, watching, well, why don't we go through my list, my top 25 favorite films of 2025? Like I said, being a favorites list, I like all these movies. In fact, I'll recommend you guys to check out every single one of these movies. And since, we do have 25 movies to go through, I will be kind of fast with it. I don't want this video to be too long, unlike last one. So, yeah, I just figured, we'll talk about these movies. I'll just give you a synopsis, my thoughts, and no spoilers, by the way. This will be a no spoilers review. And, yeah, like I said, watch every single one of these movies. And, because people be saying that, no good movies have come out. And that's just not true. Okay, a lot of good movies come out. Okay, you guys can trust me on this. Don't believe what people say that no good movies have come out or anything. There's a lot. And you're going to see there's a lot, okay? So, without further ado, let's just get right into this, okay? So, number 25 is Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. Now, this is a Netflix original movie. At least here in the US, it's a Netflix. I know it came out in theaters in the UK, so this is also a British movie. So if you don't want to watch it because you don't like British people, I don't blame you. But this is the second feature-length film in the Wallace and Gromit franchise. If you don't know, Wallace and Gromit is like a series of mostly short films. It's like 3D, or I guess not 3D, but like stop-motion animated movies. And I've always had appreciation for stop-motion animation. I always feel it's pretty the most underrated form of animated movies. Everyone thinks of animated movies, you think of 2D traditional hand-drawn or 3D computer animated movies, but stop-motion goes. I think it has a lot of work to it. I won't say it's the hardest one, but I do think it's the one that's least appreciated, especially with how much work goes into it. But yeah, I have enjoyed Wallace and Gromit. I've seen a lot of the short films, and the last feature-length film, which is this Halloween one, some werewolf thing I forgot the name of, that one was also pretty good. And so I am glad they made another one. I know people are pretty diehard about this franchise. I know Wallace and Gromit fans are it's a diehard fan base. And yeah, I think this movie was pretty funny. The plot of the film follows this evil penguin, who I think is named Feathers. He tries to get revenge on Wallace and Gromit, this elderly British man and his dog, by stealing their invention, and they go on this wild goose chase trying to get it back, and just dealing with this really nasty penguin. Seriously, this penguin is fucking diabolical. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It has a lot of British humor, so if you like Monty Python or stuff like that, I would definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix, so if you got Netflix, definitely check it out. And yeah, it's just a fun little movie. I think it's very enjoyable to watch with the whole family. If you just want something to smile about, I think Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul was definitely the go-to for it. Because that is pretty simple. Which, it does kind of hold it back, but it's not like this movie was really trying to do anything big, It's just a simple movie to watch when you just want to crack a smile, because it's fun. Wallace and Gromit is great. I love the short films. The last feature-length movie was good. I say this is just as good as the last movie, so, it's alright. Go check it out. Anyway. Number 24 is Presents. This is the next film by Steven Soderbergh, which, if you don't know, Steven Soderbergh is kind of, I have mad respect for Steven Soderbergh. He releases a new movie every year, literally every year. Last year, well, I don't think he released one last year, but the years before, he releases a new one every year. He's made, classics like the Ocean's 11, he made A Beautiful Mind. He's made this other movie that came out in 2021 called No Sudden Move, which starred Don Cheadle, which I thought was really great. I think that was a top 10 favorite movie of that year. But yeah, this Presence is great. Another thing about Soderbergh also is he has a rule that all of his movies are made in a budget of $20 million, okay? Nothing more, nothing less, all $20 million. And every single one of his movies are only 90 minutes long, so an hour and a half. This is his rule, okay? Steven Soderbergh movies have always followed this rule, at least the new ones recently. I think Ocean's 11 was kind of longer than that, but he makes all these really cheap movies. 20 million movies isn't really a whole lot. 90 minutes also really short. Again, hour and a half. You'd be surprised how short that goes by, how fast that goes by. So again, he releases a new one every year. In fact, he released 2 movies this year. First one is Presents, but we'll get into the next one a bit later. But yeah, this movie follows. It's a classic haunted house. A ghost possessing, or not possessing, but haunting the house of a family trying to get by. What's unique about this one, however, is that the movie is told from the perspective of the ghost. So we don't see the hauntings via the family, like Conjuring, right? You go from the family and they see the ghost doing all this weird shit. No, In this movie, in Presence, you see the ghost doing the weird shit. You see the ghost haunting the family, making their life miserable. Not only do we see it from the ghost perspective, but the movie is also told in first person. So like, you know, like in a video game where you're playing, you see it through the eyes of the character. You're seeing it through the eyes of the ghost, which is a pretty cool concept. But like, with how short movies get, 90 minutes, they don't really do much with it. I do feel like the concept wasn't utilized as much as it could have been. You know, I do think last year, Nickel Boys, a film that was also told in first person. I thought that one was amazing. You know, definitely another top 10 film of that year. But Presence, I don't think it really used its premise that much. I do think it's pretty forgettable, honestly. I don't really remember how the movie ends. I know there was like a twist. Soderbergh is also known for his twists at the end, kind of like M. Night Shyamalan. But I don't know. I feel like it could have been more. A lot more could have been done. But for what it is, it's pretty good though. I do think, not necessarily scary, but I do think it's just really cool to watch movies in first person, even though there's not a whole lot of those, especially a horror movie in the first person. So I still check it out because I do think it's worthy. I don't know if it's on any streaming service, but yeah. Not Soderbergh's best. Again, there is another one. We'll get to there. So anyway, number 23 is this indie film called The Assessment. The plot of this movie is set in this like the near future, a dystopian government where every couple has to register to see if they can get approved to have a baby or not, to get pregnant. So kind of like with China, you know, China had that whole like, you know, one child policy years back. It's kind of like that. And if the government deems a couple not worthy, they don't get to have a kid. You just don't have one. So, you know, it stars Elizabeth Olsen, who I think is a very underrated actress. In fact, she doesn't really do a whole lot of things, mostly because she's in Marvel jail, you know, which if you've done a lot of like actors who appear in Marvel movies, they're contracted to like not only Marvel movies, but like mostly to focus on that. So you don't really see them in other stuff. Like how many of you really seen Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and other movies besides Marvel? I do think they are doing it now because you know they're not in those movies anymore. But back when they were like Captain America and Iron Man, you didn't really see them in other things. And I think Elizabeth Olsen's time as Scarlet Witch is done for the most part. So it is cool seeing her in more roles, especially because I know she does a lot of indie. She was originally an indie star, so it is good seeing her back to her roots. But besides that, I do think the story is kind of weak. Like it's like Presence. I feel like more could have been done. And I do think the idea is kind of half-baked, if I'm being honest. I still think it's a really cool idea. And I do think what they do with it, for the most part, is cool. But I feel like there's a lot of wasted potential. But regardless, again, Elizabeth Olsen, she just steals the show. Like, honestly, this movie is great because of Elizabeth Olsen. I do think you should at least watch it just for her performance, because I do think it's amazing. And obviously, again, I do think everyone else is great. I do think the movie, its premise is great, even if it isn't as done well. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. I still recommend it. So, The Assessment, great. Elizabeth Olsen, I love you. Anyway, number 22 is Friendship. This one stars Tim Robinson, you know, who's a pretty good comedian. I actually like him. I really like him in, you know, I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, which is like this comedy sketch series on Netflix by Tim Robinson. I just love saying his name. Tim Robinson. He also co-stars Paul Rudd, who played Ant-Man in Marvel. So he's also in Marvel jail. You don't really see him in a whole lot of movies anymore. This is another indie film, obviously. The plot of the film, well, the best way I can describe it is like the reverse of Banshees of Inisherin, this other film that came out like in 2022. Whereas in that movie was about, you know, two lifelong friends ending their friendship after a long time. This movie is more about like a friendship being forced, about these two like middle-aged dudes who have like really nothing in common. And it's like a comedy, sorta. It's more like a sorrowful comedy, I think that's the word for it. Where the jokes is more about like, well, okay, it is funny. Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd are comedians, and they're both hilarious. I do think they bounce off each other really well. And I do think the plot is kind of weak. It mostly relies on its comedy and more of like the situation they find themselves in, the plot. But the plot itself isn't really strong. Like how I said, The Assessment is only really good for Elizabeth Olsen. I think this Friendship is only really good for Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, who I do think are great. And again, they bounce off each other really well. Like, these should make more movies together. I think they're great, the duo. But the movie itself, I think it was okay. I think that it was, for what it is, it's funny. I do think if you're like middle-aged, I think this will be great for you. You know, all the middle-aged dads out there, I think this is the movie for you. And I don't know, for me, I liked it because, you know, I like to say I'm young, but I do feel old. And I feel watching these type of movies kind of make me think more about like, you know, the future and stuff like that. So I was a bit more melancholic watching it, which is more on me, more than anything, you know, not to get too deep with you guys, but that's just the way I think. And yeah, I still liked it though. I still recommend it. It's funny. If you like Tim Robinson, you should check it out. And yeah, just another great indie darling that came out this year. So anyway, number 21 is Havoc. This is the next film by Gareth Edwards, who, if you don't know, he directed the Raid movies, Raid 1 and 2, which, if you've seen the Raid movies, amazing action, okay? Everyone talks about the Raid. The reason they're so amazing is because such amazing action scenes, the fight scenes in these movies are crazy. And Havoc is no different. Okay, Havoc, the fight scenes are crazy. Like, that's the only reason I watched the movie. Like, I can't even tell you what the plot is because I don't remember. I just know Tom Hardy's in it, and he's like a cop, and he's just, crazy action. He's just throwing, like, every hit. Gareth Edwards has a way where, like, every hit just feels like a brick hitting someone, The way people fall, and it's just like, oh my god, this shit pumps me up. Like, this is the type of action movies people watched back then, Like, it's really hard hitting. It's great. It's great. Like, again, nothing else about the movie is really particularly amazing. The plot or the acting or any directing isn't really that great. It's just the action. Like, oh my god, like, Gareth, he just makes great action. It's the best thing I can say about it. So, again, it's on Netflix. It's another Netflix original film. This is like a very high budget Netflix film also. So I think you check it out anyway. This is definitely a type of movie you like watch with the boys. Pulling up, open a bunch of cold ones. Watch some dude get his shit rocked. Well, Havoc is a great choice. Tom Hardy's also great. He does a lot of brooding. Not really acting, more just kind of being cool. Because that's how I describe the movie. It's cool. It's cool. Action is cool. That's it. But I still like it. So anyway, now onto the top 20. So if anything, 21 to 25 should have been more like honorable mentions, but onto the top 20. So number 20 is Companion. This one stars Jack Quaid, who you might know from The Boys, and Sophie Thatcher, who you might know from Yellow Jackets. And both of these, Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher, I think they're the next actors in Hollywood. Okay, like I definitely expect them to be in more movies in the future because they're great. I feel like Companion is definitely the type of movie where like they can show the early success because. First off, Jack Quaid is just a great actor. I think he's great. I know he's a Nepo baby, right? His dad is Dennis Quaid, who's like a big star back in like the 80s. So, it does kind of hurt my heart to praise Nepo babies, but, he's great. He's great anyway. Sophie Thatcher, she has a very unique look to her, I want to say. I don't want to be mean, because I like pretty girls. I love weird-looking Hollywood actresses. I love Anya Taylor-Joy. I love Ella Purnell, but Sophie Thatcher, she has definitely the Hollywood face, if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. But regardless, I think they're both great. The plot of the movie, by the way, is the fact that Sophie Thatcher playing this, she's in a relationship with Jack Quaid, and they go on this lake house, and after an incident, Sophie Thatcher is told that she's not an actual human being, but rather a AI robot designed to please people, and that Jack Quaid is renting her, and he has complete control over her. So the whole movie just deals with, this poor robot girl who deals with this existential crisis and knowing that her boyfriend he's just a slave. She's a slave basically, and she wants to get out. So I guess it's kind of like a horror movie. Honestly, it didn't really feel like it when I was watching it. I do think the movie was advertised as horror, which again I do think it is a horror movie if we were to give it a genre, but it didn't really feel like a horror movie. If anything, it just felt like just a drama. And yeah, it is. I think the plot of the movie is basically that one subplot in Detroit Become Human, the video game, where that one girl AI is also trying to escape her abusive boyfriend husband thing. So it just reminded me a lot of that, which is I don't know really specific, but it is what it is. And simple plot and the story is predictable. I'm sure you can figure out how it's gonna end. With, I'm not gonna say how it's gonna end. No spoilers, but we all know how it's gonna end. Really, I think the movie is great because Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher are great. I think they also work great together. It seemed like they were really fucking behind the scenes. I'm just saying. But yeah, I think Companion was fun. Definitely check it out. I think you should check it out with a significant other. This is definitely a couple movie. So all you couples out there, you put on Companion and then talk about the ethical actions of the characters. So, yep. Anyway, number 19 is Bring Her Back. This is the next horror film by the Philippou brothers. Philippou? Something like those YouTubers from Australia. They started making movies, right? A couple years ago, they made Talk to Me, which I thought was a great horror film. Really amazing, by the way. And this is their next project. And this movie, by the way, this movie is just, oh my goodness. The things they show in this, I couldn't believe it. I can't believe you can show this on, well, I guess it isn't really mainstream. It's still an indie horror film, but oh my indeed. Anyway, the plot of the movie follows these orphan siblings who get adopted by this new couple it's revealed that they're part of this like demonic satanic cult, and they're trying to like sacrifice them. So, just child abuse. There's a lot of child, especially because when you think horror movies, kids aren't really portrayed that like much violence against them, which ethical reasons anyway. But this movie does not shy away from showing like violence and horror to these children, and it's like very horrific to watch. It's really uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable watching this in a good way, though. I mean, the whole point of the movie is to make you uncomfortable, so there's like how horrible these kids are treated. So they do succeed in that, but I'm adjusting my glasses. But yeah, I do think it is kind of a bit gory. If you're not a big fan of gore, I don't really like gore. I get that some people are really into. Terrifier is huge, but I don't know. Gore has never just been my thing. So, and this movie is pretty gory, especially a lot of the violence. So, it did kind of hold it back for me, but again, that's more personal reasons. So, I do think this movie is still really great. I think it's a really great horror movie. I think it's the best horror movie so far. So, if you're big on horror, if you're big on like watching just the most awful things happen to people, if you're a Saw fan, you should definitely check this out. If you like Talk to Me, you should definitely check this out. This movie is just, oh my, so much. I can't even really describe it because it's so much happens in it, and it's just so overwhelming to really speak about it, to get my thoughts. And no spoilers also, because I've just been giving the plot. I think there's too much spoilers. Honestly, you should just go into this movie completely blind. But anyway, I do think it's great. I really like the Filippo brothers. I seriously hope I'm saying their name right. I definitely think they're going to be icons in the horror genre in the future, because they're great at this. This is literally their genre. I think they give us fresh perspective. I know they were YouTubers. I didn't really watch them when they were YouTubers, so it's great seeing smaller creators succeed in bigger industries. And yeah, I think it's just as good as Talk to Me, maybe a little better, honestly. The kid acting is also really good, which you don't really see a lot. I feel like most of the time kid acting is kind of bad, which not really their fault, more the director, honestly. If you can't work with kids, you can't work with kids, So I do applaud them for how great this was. I do applaud them for what they were able to do and what they were able to show. And yeah, again, if you love horror, you gotta check this out. This is great. So anyway, number 18 is Predator, Killer of Killers. This is an animated anthology movie, a Hulu original film set in the Predator franchise. And like I said, it's an anthology movie, so it follows 3 storylines. It's just the Predator, and they're not really complex storylines. It's just the Predator following different predators going through different periods of time on the earth, fighting different warriors, And one of them, a predator fights a Viking. Another one, a predator fights a samurai. Another one, a predator lands in like the middle of World War II, so he finds a bunch of soldiers. There's actually a 4th secret story in this, and I don't want to say it. It wasn't advertised in the trailer, so this is definitely a spoiler. But if you want to know what happens, you should definitely check it out. Now, this is an animated movie, 3D animated. Honestly, the animation kind of looks like it's from like one of those straight to DVD type shit, But not saying the animation is necessarily bad. It just, I don't know, to me it kind of looked cheap. But anyway, I do love the Predator franchise. I really love the first one. It's great. I know the Predator franchise also connected to the Alien franchise, and I also love Alien. And this movie was also directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who's the director of Prey. The newest Hulu original Predator movie. That was like him finding that Native American girl. That one was great. Predator was great. And Predator, Killer of Killers, I think is also pretty good. I feel like this is definitely a prelude to Predator Badlands, which is supposed to come out later this year. And that one, I think the trailer is also great. But yeah, Killer of Killers though, I do think this is mostly just like hype moments and aura. Like I think the reason this was made into like a live action, theatrical film was the fact that like plot is not important. This is just the Predator fighting cool shit. He fights a samurai, he fights a Viking. That's awesome, And again, the whole movie is just hype moments and aura. You watch this movie not to get a great story. You don't even watch this movie to see great characters. You watch this movie to see a Predator fight a samurai. That's what the people want. That's what they got, and that's what I loved. So, yeah, I think the movie's also pretty short, only like 90 minutes, and each segment is like 3, really 4. It goes by really fast, so I feel like this could have been more like ideas could have been into it. Honestly, we could have had like a whole Predator movie set in like feudal Japan, or like set in the Viking Age. I feel like, or World War II. I think that would have been a great, setting for a full length, theatrical live action movie. But regardless, I can see why they wanted to like put something out there. The Predator franchise is kind of slow. They haven't really had that many movies or really anything in recent years, so I do appreciate them at least putting something out there. But yeah, I think whatever it is, it's still great though. I think the fighting is pretty cool. I do think the 4th storyline, I think I really like it. That's my favorite one. I thought it was really cool. It's really cool. This is like, if you're a fanboy, I think you'll like it. I'm kind of fanboying over it. Like, there's really not much substance, but the hype moments, So, what more do you want me to say? But yeah, Predator, Killer's great. I would recommend it. I do think, actually no, I was gonna say this is my favorite animated film, but I just remember there's actually another one. So, anyway, number 17 is Novocaine. This is another movie, also starring Jack Quaid. Hey, he's here. I'm telling you, he's gonna be a big star in the future. Okay, as soon as The Boys ends, you're gonna see him a lot of things. Because I definitely think he has the next, to be the next leading man in Hollywood. Okay, just like his dad, he's gonna fill up his dad's shoes. He's gonna be another great, Tom Cruise. I'm telling you, Jack Quaid, I'm on your career, boy. But yeah, Novocaine. This one follows the plot of like this one Jack Quaid. He suffers from that one condition. I forgot what it's called, but like it's where you can't really feel pain. Like you can feel pain, but like not to a degree where you and I would feel. These people are almost immune to pain. I want to say, kind of. The movie definitely makes it out like that. I know it's not really that. I know the movie definitely exaggerates the condition, but I'm just saying a lot of the movie is, And so there's this dude who has that, and his girlfriend gets kidnapped by these like criminals, so he has to go and put himself out there to stop these criminals. And yeah, like I really like body horror and type, so I always enjoy that storylines. And my favorite type of horror is body horror. So and just body modification, I've always been fascinated by stuff like that. And while this movie doesn't really do that much, I do like how much like he uses his body as like a tool. Like Novocaine, which is like the main character's name, by the way, or is his nickname. His weapon is himself. So I don't want to give too much detail because I do think that kind of ruined the movie. The whole point of the movie, it's just a fun action movie. You just watch it and see him beat up dudes. And this whole movie also stars Amber Midthunder, who I think is also just a really good actress. She was in Prey, as I was talking about, and she was in Legion, the Marvel show about that one X-Men character. And she's great. I really like Amber Midthunder. I think she's another underrated actress. I do think she also has the makings of being the next It Girl. So I do think, again, as amazing as Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher were, I think Jack Quaid and Amber Midthunder might be the better couple, or at least fictional Hollywood couple, because they bounce off each other really well. And Novocaine is just fun. The CEO of Sex is there. The Filipino dude from Spider-Man. He's also in here. He's great. If you know what CEO of Sex is, then you know. But yeah, Novocaine is just a fun movie. I definitely recommend that. Again, it's the type of movie you watch with your boys. You want to put in something cool, just put on Novocaine. It's fun. It doesn't take itself serious at all. So don't expect any real criticisms from like it's not realistic the way he does. Like, who gives a fuck. So it's a fun movie. And yeah, again, Jack Quaid is great. Amber Midthunder is great. This is every type of movie you expect a lot to happen. I'm not here for a deep story or anything. I'm just here for Novocaine to beat people up. So, and I got what I got. So anyway, number 16 is Thunderbolts. This is the next, or not next, but this is a Marvel movie, part of the MCU. I knew other Marvel movie came out, Captain America. I thought that was kind of ass, but Thunderbolts I actually kind of really like. I always like superhero team up movies, like Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy. I just think having all these like characters bounce off each other really well. I especially really like Winter Soldier and the new Black Widow. I'm pretty sure that's what she's called. Oh, and Red Guardian. I think they're all great. I really like how they interact and all that. And yeah, the plot of the movie is basically a bunch of like D-list Marvel villains from previous movies all form this little team called Thunderbolts. You have to fight Sentry, who's basically evil Superman. He's kind of evil Superman because he flies like super strong. But he has like a power where just wave his hand, people turn into like shadows. They turn into like this black like ash on the floor. Which I don't know what the fuck Thunderbolts is supposed to do against an enemy like that. Like none of these guys really have super. I think like some of them have like super strength, like Red Guardian, but the vast majority of them just use guns. Like they're just soldiers. I don't know what the hell they expect to do against literally evil Superman, but I mean they managed to it, and I thought it was fun. I really like Florence Pugh. I think she's amazing. Anything she's in, she's amazing. And unlike other, prestige actors, Oscar-winning or Oscar-nominated actors who appear in like Marvel or superhero movies, who you can tell they do not want to be here. Florence Pugh looks like she enjoys playing it, and I really appreciate that. I really like that. Sebastian Stan, again, underrated. David Harbour, I think, is great. So, just a really good movie. I think, being a Marvel movie, I'm not a huge Marvel person. I'm more DC, but I definitely enjoy this one. I do think, people like to trash on Marvel, saying that the newest movies have been ass. And while I do think when they're bad, but when they're good, they're good. Thunderbolts, I really liked it. I liked it. And yeah, I mean, if you like Marvel, I'm sure you love this one. If you like superheroes, you'll definitely like it. And if you're a Marvel hater, I still think you like this. Okay. And I'm specifically talking to one person. She knows who she is. But yeah, also, again, specific person. I know you don't like superheroes, but You'll like Thunderbolts. I like Thunderbolts. And you'll like it too. He knows who he is. And yeah, great. You know, I know sometimes I come off as like a prestigious film nerd who only likes like, you know, indie foreign art house films, but I do enjoy me blockbusters. I do enjoy me those big budget, you know, franchise films. It's just I don't really talk about it that much. But yeah, Thunderbolts was great. And you know, onward. So number 15 is Warfare. This is the next film by Alex Garland. You know, he's the director of Civil War, which I think came out last year, as well as Ex Machina, Men, which is what we call Men, and Annihilation. Alex Garland, I have kind of like a love or hate relationship with Alex Garland. I do think he is really great at coming up with like stories and characters, but I think his directing in itself is kind of weak, you know. And Warfare, I do think Warfare is definitely his better works. I don't think, well, Alex Garland has never made a bad movie. All the movies I previously mentioned, I did like. It's just that I think there's a lot of wasted potential in all of them because of the way he directs. Like Alex Garland just let another director direct a movie and he just writes. I think it could be a lot better. This is foreshadowing for a later movie. But yeah, Warfare, it's, you know, a war movie. It's about a true story. I'm pretty sure it's based on a true story about a bunch of Iraq war veterans as they go on this like deadly mission in Iraq. And one thing I want to say, I watched this, like, every time they shoot a gun in that movie, the audio, I don't know if this is just my movie theater or just the movie in general, but like, it bounces. It's like so loud. And I know that that's like, I know shooting guns is really loud, and it's just the sound design. I think the sound design in this movie is the best part. Honestly, I think the whole sound design carries the movie. All the explosions, all the gunshots, all the screaming, you feel it. You know, you don't just hear it, you feel it. And so that's why I think it makes so great. And it's the type of those movies that takes place only in like one location, or at least in one specific area, which is not a bad thing. In fact, it should be a good thing. The fact that a movie can be entertaining and still only take place in one location. Hold on, fixing my glasses. It's very enjoyable. So I do think it really great that. I know the movie does kind of suffer from that, like, you know, post people making where like, you know, the U.S. soldiers come and invade a country and then they make a movie about how much it sucked for soldiers to be there. Because this is about the soldiers, but like the Iraqi civilians or like any other Iraqi people, they're just immediately brushed to the side. No one cares about it. No one really asks like, well, how do they feel about, you know? Because I feel bad. If you've seen the movie, like the soldiers take a civilian's house for themselves. I just feel bad for them that they're just forced to do all this. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not patriotic enough, but yeah, it's just like a very patriotic movie. I mean, all war movies are pretty patriotic by default. But, you know, I mean, still, you know, God bless our troops and all, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes it does come out as propaganda. This movie does come out as kind of propaganda, but it's enjoyable propaganda at least. You know, I don't think it's still great. You know, I salute all the troops fighting out there. And, you know, Warfare was great. It's great. I don't know what else to say. It's great. So, anyway, number 14, we get to our first foreign language film. There'll be more. It's called I'm Still Here. This is a Brazilian movie, and it's also based on a true story. This is about a mother's attempt, or a woman's attempt to find her husband or other family members who were forcefully disappeared by the Brazilian government in the 1980s. Which, if you don't know, back in like the 60s to 1980s, Brazil was ruled by a CIA-funded military dictatorship, where if you spoke out against the government, they would just kidnap you and you'd never see them again. And this movie is about that. I do think this movie, well, it came out last year in Brazil. It didn't come out here in the US until this year. So I know it was nominated for a couple of Oscars. Like, I think it was Best Foreign Language Film, which I do think was deserving. This movie is really depressing, especially because it's based on a true story also. You ever seen like movies based on a true story and you just feel like way worse about it because it actually happened? That's how I felt about this one. But, you know, the thing about foreign language, especially if it's a foreign language that I don't understand. You know, this is Portuguese, so it's hard to really base off like the acting or performance because, you know, I don't know the language, so I don't know if they're like delivering their lines good or anything. But for what was presented, at least what I can tell from it, it was great. I think the main actress, I forgot her name, it was like Fernanda something. I think she's amazing. And, you know, I do think this is a really poignant film, especially with, you know, everything going on. You know, not to get political, but with everything going on, disappearing. I think it is very relatable to watch. And I'm not Brazilian, but I am Latino, so I do relate. And yeah, I think this is a great film. I'm Still Here. Just, it's not my favorite foreign language film so far, because there are more, but it's definitely up there. Like, if you want to watch more foreign movies, I think I'm Still Here is a good start, you know? So, shout out to my Brazilians out there. Anyway, number 13 is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This is the final film in the Mission Impossible franchise. Now, I love Mission Impossible. As you know, much of a lunatic Tom Cruise is, I do think the stunts he does in this movie are just so crazy. They like, how can you not enjoy it? You know, and I do think the last couple of Mission Impossible films have been great. You know, the last one, Dead Reckoning. By the way, this movie was originally called like Dead Reckoning Part 2, but for some reason they removed that and just called it Final Reckoning, which whatever. But yeah, Mission Impossible. It's not really. Again, this is not really about like plot. It's more of just action. You know, and Tom Cruise and his gang doing these crazy things, flying, you know, hanging out of helicopters and just incredible stuff. And, you know, the plot of this movie is just, you know, Tom Cruise goes on his last mission, you know, Ethan Hunt. And he has to stop a rogue AI who's going to destroy the government or some shit. So basic ass storyline. Which, I mean, you know, for the last film in Mission Impossible, you think they'll do something more bombastic? Something more, you know, I guess something just more bigger, you know? Instead of just like evil AI, I feel like we've done this. At least not Mission Impossible, but like so many other movies have done this. And it's just, I don't know. I just feel like I should have done something else, you know, especially for that's because this is my big criticism is for like the final film of the franchise. It really doesn't feel like that. It just feels like another film in the series. Like they don't wait for the sequel, but no, this is it. So I don't know. It's still cool though. I still like you should. This is definitely a time movie you watch in theaters. You know, the biggest screen imaginable, so you can see Tom Cruise doing all this just crazy. I can't really just go on how much Tom Cruise is crazy for what he does. You know, this dude's like almost 60 and he's doing all these stunts. No stunt doubles, him himself. So. Just crazy man. But yeah, it sucks to see the Mission Impossible franchise die, but you know, for a last film, it was still pretty good though. You know, it was not my favorite. I think, you know, there are other better films. You know, the first Mission Impossible is just, you know, amazing. I don't think anything can ever really beat that. But, you know, still, that's great. A nice little send-off for most of the characters, even if I do think it's not a good send-off for the franchise as a whole. I do think it's a good send-off for the characters. And yeah, great film. So, anyway, next one, number 12, is Ballerina. Or I guess the full title is Ballerina from the World of John Wick, which is just a fucking stupid-ass title. Like, we don't need to know this is from John Wick. I think everyone can just figure that out. But yeah, Ballerina is the next film in the John Wick franchise. I think the first, like, film spin-off. You know, the film follows a ex-ballerina who becomes an assassin, and she tries to, like, avenge her dad who was killed by these other assassins. So it's just a big game of cat and mouse of assassins trying to kill each other. So, like, John Wick, you know. I love the John Wick movies. I always think they've been consistently good. Great action scenes, you know. I don't really like it when they try to build like lore. I feel like the movies just stick to simple, you know, assassins killing assassin stuff. You know, they try getting too complicated with it, and it just feels like another like superhero franchise, you know. But yeah, this kind of be a spoiler, but they show it in the trailers, so I'm gonna say it anyway. You know, John Wick does show up in it, but he plays like a pretty big role. So, I mean, if you love John Wick, check it out. Ana de Armas is really great. I know people really simp over her, and she is gorgeous. Ana de Armas, you are gorgeous, and she's good in this. She's really good in this. You know, she's always been great. She's a great actress. She's definitely do more like action movies. She was in James Bond, the No Time to Die, but she was only a little bit, and I feel like there was definitely potential there. Ballerina definitely shows off that potential. She's great at it. And she should definitely do more, you know, action movies, because I think she really fits that really well. You know, and yeah, again, Ballerina, great action. Really, what else to say? You know, gun fu. I think that it's called gun fu, like kung fu with guns. It's great. I actually wanted to watch this with my friends, but I think I was busy. I don't know what I was doing. I think it was some shit. But so they went and watched it without me. I'm kind of butthurt about it because I really wanted to watch it with them because they also like John Wick, but so I had to watch it by myself. It sucks. But again, that's only me. But yeah, Ballerina I think is great. If you love John Wick, check it out. If you love Ana de Armas, check it out. And yeah, I do think making spin-offs is a better idea than making a fifth John Wick movie, considering the way Chapter 4 ended, which I'm not going to get into. So, I mean, you could argue that, like, spin-offs, making a franchise is dumb, like, oh, we need more original films, but, you know, when it comes to a franchise as simple as John Wick, I feel like you can make plenty of spin-offs. As long as the action is good, then who really cares, you know? It's not like it's a prestige storytelling or anything, so, yeah, it's great. I liked it. Ballerina, Ana de Armas, please marry me. So anyway, number 11 is 28 Years Later. This is the sequel to 28 Days Later, or the third film in the series. And this is actually the first film in a planned trilogy, so we're going to get like 28 Years Later, Part 2, Part 3 later on. Which, I don't know, personally, I don't think 28 Days should be like a franchise. I feel like it's really like a one and done deal. I didn't really like 28 Weeks Later, which is the second film in the series. I thought it was terrible. 28 Days Later, this is incredible. I think it's one of the best zombie movies out there. Even if I do know that the Danny Boyle, the creator of the franchise, doesn't really like the term zombie. He doesn't, you know, Danny Boyle said in interviews that like the zombies in 28 Days franchise aren't zombies because, you know, the way we think of zombies, like The Walking Dead, they attack people to eat them. You know, and the zombies in the 28 franchise, they don't really eat people. They just want to spread the virus. So they're not really zombies in the sense that like they're rotting corpses who sprung from the dead to eat people. They're more just like a virus infected person who wants to spread the virus. So I can kind of see that, but like dude, they're zombies. Okay, they act like zombies. They may not look like zombies, but they're just zombies. Okay, so. But yeah, I do think 28 years later is a huge improvement over 28 weeks later. I cannot stress enough how much I dislike 28 weeks later. It's not as good as 28 days, which, I mean, should be a given. You know, 28 days was iconic because of that. Like, the fact that the movie looked like it was shot on like a grainy iPhone that was pissed on. Which, honestly, they should have done that for 28 years later also. They should have used like the same, like, you know, piss grainy iPhone, you know, footage they had for the first movie and this one. I think it would have been great. But we were given it's great. You know, the whole movie obviously set 28 years into the future, at least from 28 days later, which the UK, you know, the UK has been completely overrun with zombies, and so the rest of the government, or, you know, European countries just completely isolated the island nation. You know, the UK is an island, in case you guys didn't know that. And so everyone in that island is left to fend for themselves. And the whole movie follows this young boy who lives in a small little community of people relatively off, whose mom is dying from an illness, so he seeks out this, like, mysterious doctor who lives in the woods, so he has to face through the zombies and everything, and it's pretty good. I do really like it. Actually, they gave me this in the movie theater. Hold on, this little like poster, so you know. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I really like this like bone skull temple. Doesn't really play a big role in the movie, but still cool. I do think it's great. I think the horror was really effective. I do think that like the zombies are naked, which I feel like was kind of weird. You know, especially since some of these zombies, they were hungry, you know, but I feel like, again, realistic. I feel like this is really a realistic depiction of the zombies, or at least their version of a zombie, especially how communities and people react to it. I will say, though, this movie honestly could have been in my top 10, could have been in my top 5, but, like, the last, like, 10 minutes of that movie, oh my. If you've seen 28 years later, you've seen the last 10 minutes, those 10 minutes just kind of ruined the whole movie, in my experience, in my opinion, or at least, like, a good chunk of it, because, like, I can't even get into the spoilers, but like it's such like a tonal whiplash. Like it felt like I was watching a completely different movie. Like what is even happening? Which by the way, I just already wrote the script for this. The same guy who made Warfare, he's also like a screenwriter, so he wrote the script for this. But like, what was he cooking? You know, what did he have in his mind when he made that last 10 minutes? Because like, I had to bring it down. Like my rating for it had to go down a little bit because that, oh my god, that's 10 minutes. Those last 10 minutes were really just terrible. I did not like it at all. I feel like it kind of ruined the movie. Or I don't know, I'm just exaggerating. I do think the movie is really good. If you love 28 Days, I think you should definitely check out 28 Years. I think it's a really successful. I'm not too happy that the movie kind of is getting a sequel. Again, I don't really feel like this should be like a franchise. But Last 10 Minutes were also awful. I did not like that at all. But still, great movie, great horror film. Not really scary in my opinion, but technically a horror movie. You know, zombies is a horror, that's how it is. So yeah, 28 years later, it's great. Recommend it. Yeah. So, top 10. Top 10. Number 10 is Sinners. Yeah, the one starring Michael B. Jordan. 2 of them, actually. So, obviously the movie has not a lot of buzz. I think it's definitely the most popular film, or at least second most popular. There's another one that just came out. So, but this is definitely a really popular one. It was in theaters for like so long. Also, I think this movie was in theaters for like 2 months, which is like the longest I've ever seen a relatively small film be in theaters for that long. But it is great, though. It is great. You know, if you don't know Sinners, you know, it's about these like twin brothers, both played by Michael B. Jordan. So they're in the Deep South during the Great Depression, and they have to fight these vampires. Racist as vampires, by the way. And, you know, vampires is kind of like a done and done genre. You know, it's kind of gotten tropey recently, but I think like films like Nosferatu, which came out last year, and Sinners, I do think vampires are making a comeback. You know, they're scary again. Vampires are scary again. You know, back then they were sexy. People wanted to do Twilight, and they were funny, Hotel Transylvania, but they're scary again, so I really appreciate that. But Sinners, this is a really creative movie, especially with the vampire genre. Michael B. Jordan is amazing, obviously, I don't think that needs to be said. And I really like how, like, you know, the themes about racism, about culture, wanting to, like, whitewashing, you know, because the white vampires use the black music to trick them. You know, it's all about, like, you know, wanting to stick true to your morals. There's a lot in the movie, and personally, I think the reason why I didn't like it nearly as much as most people do, mostly just the fact that, like, I don't know, it's just, like, they do a lot with vampires, but at the same time, it is kind of simple. It does feel like it's being held back, like the creators weren't really allowed to go all in. You know, like if you've seen the movie, I think you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, it's not the violence; it's violent, but it's more just like the themes. I feel like the themes of like racism and cultural appropriation could have been way more, because it does kind of feel kind of flat. You know, like if you watch the movie, you won't really pick up the themes as you're told, because I do think the movie it's more about the vampires more than the actual themes. Which what I love about movies is the themes. You know, what they're actually trying to say. And Sinners does a good job on that. It does feel like it's being held back, but yeah, I just think it's great. I would definitely recommend it. Top 10. I mean, it's amazing. You know, Michael B. Jordan is amazing in this. I feel like he's definitely get like at least the best actor role, because he is really great. He's really great. Haley Steinfeld is also great. I love her, Haley Steinfeld. You know, she's amazing in this also. You know, amazing Snow Bunny. So anyway, number 9 is Mickey 17. This is the next film by Bong Joon-ho, who's like this really prominent Korean filmmaker. You know, he made Parasite, Memories of Murder, The Host, Mother, amazing Korean films. This one is in English though, American movie. He has made English language films before. You know, he made Snowpiercer with the one with Chris Evans, and Mickey 17 starring Robert Pattinson. This movie also stars like 2 of them, so you know, common theme there. But yeah, I think this one was really good. I do think, I feel like the fact that Bong Joon-ho doesn't really speak a lot of English, you can kind of tell with that, his directing, because like some parts are kind of iffy, but you can tell it's more, I guess, language barrier or culture shock, like that Korean guy making an American movie. I have to say it's still great though. Robert Pattinson's great. Bong Joon-ho, I love his directing, I love his like style, his humor. I think it's really, really well. But you know, the plot of the movie is about, you know, it's in a space colony in the future where Mickey is like this loser whose job is he goes to his dangerous stunts, and every time he dies he gets like cloned and there's a new one. But so this happened like 17 times, you know. It's Mickey 17 because he died 17 times, they got cloned 17 times. But you know, things start to go awry when, you know, he gets cloned twice by accident. So there's 2 of them, and they start to like, you know, really question the society they live in, and you know, who really controls them, the elite and stuff like that. So it's really fun. It's a fun sci-fi movie. Robert Pattinson's great, like I mentioned, and yeah, I can't really get into too much of it. Oh, Mark Ruffalo, who plays the Hulk in Marvel, he's like an amazing villain in this. I think he was really entertaining to watch. He's a really good actor, and the villain he plays just like, it's fun to watch. This is the type of movie where you watch because the villain is so fun and he is so exaggerated, so eccentric, it's so great. So yeah, I think one thing that does hold it back, again, like I said, was definitely the FU parts. You could tell, probably due to the, you know, difference between the cast and the creator, but still a great movie. Still enjoyed it, and you definitely check it out. So Mickey 17, great. Number 8 is The Phoenician Scheme. This is the newest film by Wes Anderson. You know, Wes Anderson is a filmmaker I absolutely love. He's made other incredible films, you know, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Fantastic Mr. Fox, you know, Rushmore, Moonrise Kingdom, and he has a certain style to it. Like if you've seen Wes Anderson movies, you know what I'm talking about. His style is so unique, only to him. It's like impossible to replicate. And I will say his newest movies, you know, like I think French Dispatch and Asteroid City, I feel like Wes Anderson's gotten too comfortable with his style that they're almost like indistinguishable from one another, you know. Besides the plot, all the films just kind of look the same. If you put them like side to side, you can't really tell what scene is from what movie because they'll kind of look the same. And to me, that's what Phoenician Scheme suffers from, is the fact that it just kind of looks exactly like his last movies did. There's really nothing different. You know, I know each filmmaker has a style, but each film has a different take of that style, you know. And Wes Anderson did have that for like the majority of his career, but I think recently he has kind of gone too comfortable, like I said. But I mean, it's still great though. You know, French Dispatch and Asteroid City are still great movies, and Phoenician Scheme is no different. You know, it has a huge cast. Everyone does their part. No one is horrible. Everyone is amazing. The plot of the movie, by the way, is about this like businessman, this rich businessman who has this crazy project called the Phoenician Scheme, and he tries to like build it with his nun daughter who hates him. All the while he's trying to escape like, you know, government officials, terrorists, other rival businessmen, assassins. It's a movie where like a lot happens, which is like a classic Wes Anderson thing. And it's still fun. I really like the approach to it. I really like his style. I love Wes Anderson's style, even if it is kind of a bit lazy, if you ask me. And yeah, I just think this is great. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely check it out, you know. Definitely check it out one setting. I think it's really important you watch it in one setting. I'm still talking to you. You know who you are, watching movies in parts. This is a movie you need to watch one setting. Okay, very important detail. So, yeah. Number 7 is Superman. Woo! This is definitely my most excited movie of the year. I love Superman. You know, I'm a huge DC nerd, so Superman was great. I was just gonna go straight into it. It was great. I love it. I think it's definitely way better than Man of Steel. Man of Steel was awful, and I think Superman's great. I would say it's as great as like the original like 1978 or Superman 2 from 1980. I think those films are just too classic to really say it's bad or anything. I don't think any movie ever take it. Even though I do think CGI and visuals are obviously better, but I think in terms of actual like filmmaking and story, I think the originals are better. But this movie was really good. I really like David Corenswet as Superman. I think it was great. I love James Gunn. I love his like Guardians of the Galaxy movies and his second Suicide Squad movie. I think those were great. James Gunn is definitely I think the best like superhero filmmaker out there. I like how campy it is. Even it was a little too campy at some points. I think really my biggest takeaway Superman is the fact that it's one of those superhero movies where like if you really think about the plot, it kind of gets to shatter because there's like so many like things that happen that just like if you think about it again, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Or like why didn't they do this or this and that? And it doesn't mostly come off as nitpicky, but I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, I do think something like this kind of matters. So, take what you will. But still, I think it was great. I think this is the great start for like the new DC cinematic universe, right? There was the old one that started with Man of Steel. And that shit was horrible. So, I think this one was great. I definitely think it's the best like big budget blockbuster of the year. And honestly, it gets me excited for the next DC universe, So, if you love superheroes, you'll love this. If you love DC, you'll love this. If you don't like superheroes, you'll love this. If you don't like DC, you'll love this. It's a movie you can't really hate. My own criticism of it are really just nitpicks that kind of bother me specifically, but this is great. I think Superman is back. Superman has been done dirty so much. Like evil Superman has been a trope for so like recently. So I think it's great seeing good Superman make a comeback. And yeah, it's just really great. I love Crypto. I love like the Justice Gang, even though they don't really do much, but I think they were fun. Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult, Lex Luthor, really underrated. I think he was a really highlight of the film. And yeah, just great. It's great. Watch Superman, please. It really is good. It's really good. So, number 6 is Ne Zha 2. This is my favorite animated movie of the year. It's actually Chinese. It's from China. So, China, for like a big as country, has a really small movie industry. So, and this is actually the highest grossing animated film ever. Ne Zha 2. And yeah. So the movie is about like this classic like Chinese mythology folklore story. I can't remember. I watched this movie like months ago, so I honestly can't really remember that much. I just thought the animation was really good. It's 3D animated, but like it kind of Chinese animation reminds me a lot of like it's a mix between like Western, American, European animation with Japanese anime, and I think it's like a nice mix. And I really like it's foreign language in Chinese, and it's great seeing the fact that like for a country with like such a rich history and culture, they can make movies on that rich culture and history. And Ne Zha 2 is really... this is a sequel. I haven't seen the first movie, and honestly, I don't think you really should watch the first movie. Not saying it's bad, but like, if you don't want to watch, I don't think it's necessary to check out the second one. But Ne Zha 2, I think it's just really fun. I think it's really great. I was really impressed by it. Again, China, small movie industry, you would expect... Like, how many movies from China have we seen? Like, I feel like I've seen barely. But Ne Zha 2 was really fun. I know it's kind of crazy putting this above the Superman, but like, I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. I really vibed with that. I really connected with that. I like the lore, I really want to play like Black Myth Wukong, that one like Chinese Dark Souls game. And I feel like Chinese like, mythology is really underrated, so it was really fun seeing that. And yeah, underrated franchise. I feel like you should definitely check out Ne Zha 2. Highest grossing animated film ever, so check it out. And I do think, I'm surprised it didn't came out, considering, the relations with China and US aren't exactly the best. So it was great seeing this. I'm glad I was able to see it in theaters. And yeah, definitely check it out. If you love animation, I think this is definitely worthy, of your time. And yeah, I honestly can't wait more movies from China. And I hope they do make more of these type of movies, more animated or even live action, because I feel like there's a lot of potential in China. With their storytelling, even if they are regulated by the government, let's not get into that conversation for another time, but it was great. I like this one. So, my top 5, all right, these are the big ones. So, these movies I really recommend, and you should really check this out. This is mandatory to check these out, right? So, number 5 is Universal Language. This is actually a Canadian movie, a French-Canadian movie, which, if you don't know, like 90% of Canada, they speak English, but like there's like a specific area in Canada where they speak French, okay? And French people are really stubborn, so they have their own independent movie studio away from like English Canadian movie studios, and they make their own stuff. And Universal Language is French Canadian. The plot of that movie is about like an immigrant from the Middle East as he moves to Canada, and he has to pass citizenship, learn French, learn English, and accustomed to Canada culture and stuff like that. So it's culture shock. And I relate to this a lot. I was born in the U.S., but obviously I come from an immigrant background, And so seeing stories about immigrants, seeing them, the old culture, like I relate to that a lot. I love movies about that. It's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And Universal Language does a really good job of showing the immigrant experience. Again, I'm not one, but I know the experience. I've been around plenty of people with that, plenty of family and friends. So it's really good seeing it. I think it's a very touching film also about losing one's identity, or having to assimilate to this foreign culture that's almost alien to you. The struggles of, language barriers and, being an immigrant, especially again, not to get political, but, the current climate here, at least in the US, is, not very good for immigrants. So seeing this film, I think it really is powerful. I think it's very impactful. I really like it a lot. It is an indie movie, foreign language one, and I just really like it. I think it's great. I like the message. I love the themes. I love the story. I love the acting, or at least from what I can tell. When I get foreign language, can't really tell from that, but that's great. Yeah, Universal Language, definitely check it out. So number 4 is Sorry Baby. Funny title, really depressing movie. So the plot of this movie follows this teacher who gets sexually assaulted, and now he just has to pretend it never happened. Very dark subject matter. I don't want to get into too much because that's not my area to speak. But this movie is really thought provoking. Such a horrible thing happened to someone, you just have to go on with life, just act like it doesn't bother you. When again, I feel like just watching the movie speaks on it. Let it speak for itself, okay? Because it's very, very impactful. Again, just like Universal Language, you can see definitely where my indie, prestigious, pretentious ass is coming from. But again, I really want to get into too much because I feel like I should have just let the movie speak for itself. But Sorry Baby, it's very don't expect this to be a feel good movie. This is depressing, but I feel like it's a movie we should watch because I feel like it's very powerful. I feel like it really teaches you something that you may never know about. You may hopefully never experience, but although plenty of people have experienced in the past. I think not just in the past, but plenty of people have experienced this, and I feel like it's important to know how they struggle with how they go about, because this is really it's a very deep movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm not saying that it's fun. It was not, but this is the type of movie filmmakers love, and I love. So definitely check it out. So we'll go from one depressive film to a really good heartfelt one. Is number 3, The Ballad of Wallace Island. This is another British movie, and this is a really feel-good movie. The plot is fast that this regular dude wins the lottery and decides to use his money to force his favorite band. It's this duo. The band broke up, and he uses his vast wealth to force or pay the 2 singers to reunite and perform just for him. And those 2 singers were dating. They broke up. The band broke up. So it's kind of like Oasis. Instead of being brothers, it was a couple, and they broke up, and now they're forced to get back together because some rich dude paid them to do so. And it's just a movie about relationships, about love for music. If you love music, you relate to this movie a lot. And yeah, I don't know, it just felt nice. It's just a nice watch. You watch this movie just to feel good. You watch this movie just to see wacky, fun characters do wacky, fun things. And it's just very casual, and it's very, I just felt nice watching it. Sometimes you don't need to watch a big budget action horror movie or whatever. Sometimes you just need to watch something that's cool, something that's nice, something that you just put in the background and just make you enjoy life, So Ballad of Wallace Island is really amazing. So number 2 is Black Bag. This is the other Steven Soderbergh movie that I was talking about. Steven Soderbergh, oh my God, I don't think I'll talk about it, but I love Steven Soderbergh. He's amazing. And Black Bag is another amazing movie. This is an American movie, but it takes place in Britain. So, I guess you can just pretend it's a British movie. It kind of is. It stars Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett, two incredible actors, by the way. Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender are incredible. Incredible. I can't go enough. And they're incredible in this movie. So, the plot of the movie is they both work for this British CIA version of what it's called. They work for the government and suspect that someone in the department is a rat, and the dude, Michael Fassbender, is told that his wife might be the rat, and so he has to investigate and prove whether his wife is innocent or guilty. And the plot twist, I think, in the end, the movie is really slow. It's a very slow burn. Not much happens until the very end. But I think that very end, unlike 28 years later, where I think the end ruined it, the end saves the movie, honestly. That end was it blew my mind. I get it. Soderbergh is known for his twist, and the twist of that movie is the end. It made me want to rewatch it just so I can, because that already shit really blew my mind. That end saved. The movie was kind of boring on some parts, but that end, oh my God, I can't praise that end so much. It really is amazing. I think it definitely saves the movie for me. And yeah, I think you should check it out. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Black Bag ends up in my top 10 of the year, at the end of the year. because it was really good. I still think about it. Like just talking about it right now, I'm like picturing the scenes in my head and just how amazing it was. So definitely check it out. Black Bag, incredible. And now, ladies and gentlemen, my number one film of 2025 so far. It might come as a bit of a shock, but I really did like it. So my number one is F1. Yeah, the racing movie with Brad Pitt. I just really liked it. I don't know. I really love watching this movie. You know, the movie is about Formula One. You know, so if you're into Formula or just like racing in general, like NASCAR, I think you definitely check this one out. I think you'll love it. I'm not really into racing. I loved it, so you know that goes to speak for itself. But the film follows Brad Pitt, who's like this older retired F1 driver who decides to make a comeback to help out this like struggling team. And he plays dirty, he plays tricks, he acts a robbery with the younger other driver. But they get together and, you know, we'll see if they win or not. It's kind of cliche, especially those like, you know, will they, won't they, older guy, new talent, real life rivalry. But see, those genres work because they're entertaining. You can change them, you can rework them and make it new, then it's okay, you know? In F1, I think the racing scenes in F1 are just so like I was glued to the screen watching, like I felt that. Okay, I just really liked it, you know? When I was driving home from the theater after watching the movie, I felt like I was in the fucking Formula One. Like, goddamn, that movie hyped me up. You know, F1 is the type of movie you watch and you want to beat the dude in the movie. You know, Superman was kind of like that, right? But F1 for me was that. You know, I wanted to be Brad Pitt. Maybe not actual Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt in that movie. But yeah, I don't know. I really liked it. I just love the racing scenes. I love the character. You know, people will complain that's cliche, like I said, that, you know, it's predictable, but it doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. You know, if it's predictable, as long as it keeps you entertained, then it's okay, right? You know? Most superhero movies are predictable, but like it doesn't mean they're not entertaining. You know, the good guy's always gonna beat the bad guy, but it doesn't mean it's gonna be bad. So F1, I think, is just great. If you're into like racing, like I said, if you're just into like, this is the movie you should watch like in theaters also, biggest screen possible, because you won't get the full experience at home. But F1, Brad Pitt, terrible person, amazing actor, you know. And everyone else, Carrie Condon, she's amazing. Carrie Condon is amazing. Okay, she was amazing in Inisherin. She was amazing in Better Call Saul. I don't know if you guys know that. She was amazing in like that one part she had in The Walking Dead, like a disgusting, dirty, homeless woman. She's amazing. And she's amazing in this. And F1 is just incredible. Like, you guys gotta check out F1. I don't know what else to say. It's my favorite movie of the year. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in my top 10 by the end of the year. I do think this movie should be nominated for like best directing or best editing and best sound design, because I think it's great. F1, I love F1. It's amazing. And yeah, that's my top 25. And like I said, every movie I mentioned is recommended. I think you should check all of them out. I like all of these movies. Obviously, some more than others, but I just think they're all entertaining. I think they're all fun. Like I said, 2025, great year. I can't wait to see what else comes out later this year. You know, there's so many other films coming out. And we'll see how much it change. You know, I'll probably do like a top 10 by the end of the year. Or maybe top 20. Honestly, I can make another top 30 if I wanted to. So, yeah. Great year, great movies, you know, movies, I love movies. I love movies, you know. So the fact that I recommend every single one of these, you should definitely check it out, because don't believe when people say that no good movies are coming out, because that is wrong. That is so wrong. So many good movies come out. I've said 25 of them, and please just check it out. So, you know, thanks for watching, and, you know, leave down in the comments which one of these was your favorite. You know, what's your favorite movie of the year so far? You know, which ones did I miss? You know, because if the movie wasn't mentioned in my top 25, then either I didn't watch it or I didn't really like it that much. So, you know, tell me what you guys think. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time.